Thanks everybody for joining this afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here speaking to you about BT security and what we see further. So to introduce myself, I'm Derek Higgins. I'm a security solutions specialist here at BT Ireland. I have almost 10 years experience in cybersecurity, and I'm with BT just under a year now. I was with the Galway-based security firm before this. So my roles and responsibilities would be mainly speaking to our partners, customers about their security landscape, how they would look to develop that, and coming up with a strategic plan on the best solutions for their needs over the coming years as well to try and keep ahead of the curve. So I'll now let John introduce himself as well.
Thanks, Derek. John Murray, Security Technical Specialist with BT. I work with the BT Ireland team, obviously, and our global team, working to help our customers achieve and improve their cybersecurity posture. I was afraid Derek might mention years of service, etc. I'm working in telecoms now, a little over 20 plus years. Yeah, quite a bit of experience both on the telecoms and IT side. Kick off, Derek, then.
Perfect. Thanks, John. So what I'll do is I'll kick off. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to kind of speak about what we're seeing in the world of security at the moment, some of the headaches and obstacles that we're seeing, and how we're helping our customers and partners to counteract that. Later on, John will delve into specifics around DDoS trends we're seeing globally, and some of the things, some of the I wouldn't say the outliers, but some of the in-depth experience that we've seen around that as well. So to start off, what's happening in your world? So what's happening in your world, what's happening in our world, everybody's world out there at the moment. I have this broken down into three topics. So digital disruption, digital transformation, and digital consumption. So digital disruption, I would call this the digital revolution. It is already transforming many aspects of business and even whole industries. So modern techs and technologies are beginning to alter today's industries. So people are working different. There's a big disruption on how we used to work and how we are going to work going forward. Then on to the digital transformation, as you can see here, is key to business success. It move to mobile, to the cloud, AI, your OT, your IT environments, how they coordinate together and how they communicate together, and how it can help drive your business forward as well. Like for example, it used to take Fortune 500 companies about 20 years to reach $1 billion valuation, whereas in today's tech startups, they can do it in 3 to 4 years. A good example of that would be your good friends from Limerick who started Stripe. And a little BT plug, they were BT Young Scientist winners going back over the years as well. So they got to that valuation very quickly with their technology. So it's really driving business forward as well. And then, of course, digital consumption, which is probably the most important part, or one of the most important parts. So, this is how customers behave and how their expectations have changed over the last number of years. And again, a lot of this was probably driven by the pandemic. So people at home, always connected, they have an appetite for demand and speed, convenience, and a non-stop connectivity, because whether we like it or not, we are always connected, be it on our phones or mobile devices, and our homes are becoming more and more connected, and let alone our businesses. So just moving on from there, the world, in regards to the digital consumption, the World Economic Forum has estimated that roughly 1 trillion of value could be created by digitalization over the next decade. So it is really picking up speed, and it is really lucrative for a lot of businesses out there. And if I could move to the next slide, it would be handy. There we go. So this is just a statement. I'm not going to read it out in full, but this is kind of in conjunction with the World Economic Forum in regards to those big numbers that we were just hearing about. It's a strange way to describe it. You could almost describe it like global warming. Whether we like it or not, it is coming, and action would need to be taken now or very soon by organizations to get ahead of this curve. So by say 2030, next gen technologies will be in use for everything that we use. So as you can see there, the quantum computing and so on, everything is getting smaller and faster and more connected, no matter where we are, be that 5G, 4G, Wi-Fi 6, and so on. The future trends of speed and connectivity is always evolving. So security has to evolve with that. Security is almost a game of cat and mouse. So it's a matter of trying to stay ahead of the curve, seeing what's coming and getting ahead of that. So organizations do need to be implementing next gen technologies for security now to get ahead of this curve because you don't want to fall behind. So we've gone into what we're seeing in the world at the moment. So what I'm going to delve into now is some of the obstacles, the cybersecurity obstacles and the problems that we're seeing. And this is from talking with our customers, with partners, with vendors, and with the wider environment, just to see what is happening out there. And I've this broken down into 6 categories. So the complexity of state, so your point solutions. A lot of people that we'd be talking to that have multiple vendors for multiple different aspects of their security. Defense in depth approach is a great way of doing it. Having the specialists in the specialist areas doing those, but managing and controlling those and seeing what each of those vendors are doing can become very cumbersome and a large headache for people, for our partners as well. So the whole having too many vendors it can be a good thing and a bad thing at times as well if you have the correct management systems in place for that. Then the next one here, it's a bit of a tongue twister for myself, but the heterogeneous environments. So this is your cloud migrations. So many companies over the last number of years have done the great migration to the cloud, be that Azure, AWS, Oracle, Alibaba, the list goes on. You may be a hybrid cloud or you may be a one cloud shop as well. So it's where now that you have done that, where is your network perimeter? Where is your DMZ? People are connected from everywhere, off network, on network, working from home, working from mobile devices while they're doing their shopping, while they're picking up the kids and so on. So where is your network edge now, and where is your DMZ? Controlling that access and controlling that can be very, very difficult. Um, Next is lack of situational awareness. So the cyber threat landscape. So for your organization or for your business, what are the threat actors after? How do they attack your specific organization? Each organization, say, has different crown jewels, be it a financial organization, a bank, to a tech company. The threat actors attack these organizations differently. Not They won't use the same tactics against multiple different organizations. So it's about knowing your enemy. You must know your enemy to protect yourself in the best way and manners as well. Um, Lack of basic IT hygiene. So this would be, say, your vulnerabilities, making sure you've got a good patching, making sure you're on top of your patching, be that for your firewalls, your endpoints, be it if you use Windows for your desktop, for your users, and so on. Again, your user access and your educating users. We're not all working in environments where people are tech savvy. You may be an environment where people might log into a desktop or a laptop once a week to maybe fill in notes or something like that. So having that end user education is key as well to make sure they don't click on that link, that suspicious link that comes in an email. Always be questioning: is this actually from John? Making sure your end users are aware of it. It's always better to err on the side of caution than anything else. And your user identification, making sure that um, it, this login is actually Derek from his home office or from the actual head office as well, or the bricks and mortar office. So user access, making sure the right people have the right access to the right data and not above or below that as well. Then your complexity of regulations. Regulations is a minefield. I'm not a regulatory expert, and I wouldn't pretend to be. I'd have an idea of it, but to be an expert in it is quite a speciality. So be that GDPR in Europe or SIPA or HIPAA, and the list goes on, making sure that you are compliant in that. And be it that most organizations in Ireland are multinational, making sure that you are compliant in all the different regions as well. And then the big one is the skills shortage and the talent shortage. I believe it was just over 2 million cybersecurity vacancies globally coming up to the end of last year. So that was growing rapidly. And with the current crisis going on in Ukraine and Russia and so on, that threat vector has gone up a number of notches. So the skills shortages and talent shortages is a key concern and an obstacle for everybody out there. So what does all this mean for you and for us? So security is now a business issue, not a technology issue. So say you have a CISO in your organization, or the security conversation is no longer just for the IT staff. This is now a board level conversation. Every board level is and should be speaking security. How are we secure? Who would be looking to attack us? Why would they be looking to attack us? Because everybody's a target, large or small, you're a target. So it's making sure that you know your landscape and who may be attacking you, and being able to block that, and to have the correct policies in place. It's no longer about the network perimeter. Because the adoption of the cloud means you can no longer have a holistic view of your network perimeter security, because where is your network perimeter now? If someone is on 4G on their phone checking their email or their Teams, or logging into servers, maybe not on a mobile device, but something like that, where is your network perimeter and how are you securing that? And work is increasingly done outside of your bricks and mortar offices. So it's about protecting and having visibility. Visibility is a key word going through the security landscape as well. And of course, remote working has become the new normal. Some might say going back into the office is now the new normal. But the hybrid, I personally think, is probably the future of this as well. It'll be the hybrid model. So it's no longer just about maintaining remote access for a small portion of the time and the organization. Resources must be available 24/7 from anywhere and any device. So it's about securing and identifying that traffic as well. So large parts of your estates are no longer under direct control. Moving workloads to cloud, they may save you infrastructure costs, but it brings with it a whole new set of security issues, again, around connectivity and availability. The increased focus on regulatory and compliance. There was a lot in the news in Ireland here, I believe was it last week, the week before, where hefty fines were handed out because of breaches of this. So knowing the compliance that you must be adhering to is key, and making sure you are compliant with that again as well. And the OT and IT converging. So devices that were never designed to be connected to the internet are now connected to the internet. And are they secure? OT is probably one of the most targeted vectors that we're seeing at the moment as well. So let's say, for example, I recently installed a Ring doorbell here at home. Most of us will probably have an Alexa at home as well. And these are all now connected to the internet. Whereas before, Alexa was probably a radio in the corner that would never be designed to connect to the internet. A doorbell used to go ding dong, whereas now it goes ding dong, but you can actually talk to the person over the internet via your phone through your doorbell as well. So it's making sure all these devices are identified and connected. If they have an IP address, they can be targeted. So it's about making sure that they are secure as well. So how can we help you tackle these security challenges? So on my next slide, I actually have a quick video that goes through the BT Protect, the BT Protectors, how we're looking at that, and then I'll delve into it. So fingers crossed that the sound does come across here for correctly. So I'm just going to come to this video and share my sound.
When it comes to keeping the world safe, it's like in the movies. Our reality is far more serious than fiction. At BT, our security team tackles around 6,500 global cyber attacks every day. Cyber criminals never sleep. Technology in their hands spends all day, every day, looking for ways to exploit weaknesses and cause chaos in society. Ways to harm health services, ways to disrupt emergency services, armed forces, and governments. Ways to cause chaos for around the world. Make no mistake, the threat is real, and it's growing every day. Our security team operate 24/7, 365, providing security solutions across 180 countries and investing around £60 million on research every year to always be one step ahead. The COVID-19 pandemic has seen a huge increase in online activity, bringing an increased opportunity for hackers to do their damage. There's never been a greater need for our expertise. We're often working in secrecy, behind the scenes, delivering critical services that millions rely upon, but which few realise are happening. Security is one of the T. We're a curious team from all walks of life, each with a vital part to play. Together, we keep BT and its customers safe from harm. We have shared values and shared commitment. We won't let the bad guys win. We connect for good. We are the protectors.
Now, I am conscious that that may have been a bit laggy. I see that in there. Always the joys of doing things live and videos and PowerPoints and sharing video and so on. So what I'll do is I'll share that that video out in a link into the chat in a moment as well. And I believe one of my colleagues might be on the line. So if they have the link, they might pop it in there now as well. But I don't have the dramatic music or that sense of urgency in my voice in my presentation, but I hope it gets the point across as well that we do have the global network and we have eyes on the global network. So I'm just reaching in now to the whole topic of we see further. So what is BT security? We'd almost say BT security is one of the best kept secrets, which we don't want it to be a secret. We want to get the word out there that we do security and we do it very well. So we see further. The reason we say that is we have a global network. So we have a ringside seat on global threats. So if there is an issue or we see a attack occurring, we see it as far away from your network as possible. So whether it occurs in Algeria, in Australia, in Alabama, in Adair, in Armagh, we see it and we stop it as close to source as possible. But it's not just that we stop it. We do take that in, we analyze it, we investigate it, we learn from it, because each attack is different. Each virus is different. Each malware is different. Each DDoS is different. Each everything is different. So we dig into that and we learn from that. And that's what our protectors are doing on a daily and hourly basis as well. Log4j at the end of last year is massive, and we have not seen. I don't think we've even seen the start of that yet, in my own opinion. The dangerous part about that is it could be in people's networks and you just don't know, and they're just waiting to activate it in the background, or they're sniffing around the network. So that's where our protectors are coming in, viewing this, see how it behaves, what it does, and looking out for that information, and then being able to go into people's networks and see if it is in there. So we also have our vendors. So our vendors go through rigorous testing before being onboarded into our portfolio. So we make sure that we have the best of breed for our customers. We're not single vendor agnostic. We've multiple vendors for each of our offerings. So that's where we would come in. We'd make sure that we are proposing the best solutions for our customers as well. One size does definitely not fit all in the security world. And it goes to what we call our Cyber Assessment Lab, or CAL. Now, I'll dig into that in a little bit as well, a little bit in a moment. We're in over 180 countries, protect some of the world's largest organizations. We also do nation state level. Oh, the whole just went off there for some reason. We also do nation state level security. So think the most secure locations in the world, we're doing the security and the protection behind that as well. So we protect our customers the way we protect ourselves, and we protect these locations. We're, as I mentioned, in over 180 countries. We've got over 3,000 security experts and 16 global SOCs, soon to become 17. The 17th will be onboarded mid this year, and it's quite close to home as well. We see 6,500 cyber attacks each day. So as you can imagine, our protectors are quite busy analyzing, reviewing all of these, but 6,500 globally we see activating each day. We've got security consultancy. So these are our regulatory experts, and they also are industry experts as well in the different fields. We've got the global compliance team as well. And we also do what is pretty cool is red teaming, blue teaming, and also purple teaming. So the red teaming, if people aren't aware of that, it's actually pretty cool. So the red teaming is where, say, someone might come to us and say, we want you to pretend to be the hackers or the people trying to get into our organization and coming to try and attack us and hack us and give us full information. So it's full, obviously very NDAs every place, but no information would be shared. But think of people following people into banks. That's what the red team would be doing. They'd set up mock roadworks outside of your location, and they may have cameras facing your swipe pads to see if they can pick up people's PIN codes coming into the office. They would set up fake Wi-Fi access points in your networks, and even microphones and videos inside of boardrooms. The blue team is the opposite of that. That they're the people blocking the red teaming. So you might hire one organization to red teaming, another organization to blue teaming, and let them do battle outside and see where your weaknesses and strengths are. And then guess what? When you mix red and blue together, you get purple. So we do purple team, which is a mixed bag of both of those two things together. It would be remiss of me not to mention this. I cringe a little bit. I'm not a marketing person, but this is real, and this is brilliant to see. So the IDC named BT as a European Managed Security Service Provider leader. So you can see we're in the top right-hand corner here. A lot of other household names like IBM, Accenture, and the list goes on there, but we are leading the way in managed security solutions. A lot of drivers behind this, but our regional security operation centers are qualified local security practitioners in multiple regions across the globe. And also we have recently deployed Eagle Eye, well, late last year, Eagle Eye, which is a BT grown system with AI intelligence that can help remediate in real time any issues inside of your network as well. And we have a number of other investments as well, like Safe Secure, which will give you a cyber security, cyber maturity score, and also give you a roadmap going forward on where you may be weaker and where you may be stronger, so you know where to invest going forward. Then we have a full range of solutions to address business outcomes. So in here, we've got managed security, threat intelligence, and security advisory. So our managed security is at the heart of everything we do. So we offer managed security services in cloud, endpoint, network, data, applications, identity, and the list goes on. And we've got some of our security partners down the bottom as well. Threat intelligence. Our propositions in this area give customers greater visibility on the threats they may face. So we combine our own threat intelligence with partner offerings to automate and orchestrate response and reduce the burden of alerts on our customers. So knowing your attackers, knowing your enemy is what a lot of this would be. And then our security advisory. So we've a cyber roadmap consulting methodology here. So this is where our advisors would come in. They would speak to your IT staff, maybe your CISO, your CTO as well, to get the business view and also the boots on the ground view of what is happening within your organization. And then they would come back with comprehensive information and data on your environment, and give you a roadmap, say a CMA, a cyber maturity assessment. It would be performed to your TPF, threat prioritization framework as well. So a lot of that to help build your future roadmaps in security as well. And then BT Global, they are security advisory services. So in here, again, I like breaking things down into circles and little snippets like that. So the cyber threat management, so this will pinpoint significant threats in your business, so you can invest in the right defenses, as we mentioned earlier. Your governance and risk, so our governance and risk analyzers would come in and view where your business may be located, be it multinational and so on. Look at the regulatory compliances that you must adhere to, and help you create a roadmap on becoming compliant there, or helping you becoming more compliant in those situations. And then cloud security, understanding where you are in the cloud journey and how to ensure your digital workloads are deployed securely. So again, the great cloud migration, making sure that is done securely and advising on that. And then I mentioned earlier a cyber assessment labs, or CAL. So you can see it's like a funnel. So on the left, we've technology scouting, voice of our customers. Our customers obviously are the people who we are talking to daily. So we're always listening to their information and feedback. Our industry partners, SME startups, academic relationships, and applied research. In BT, we've a long history of innovation and a long, rich history of choosing the best for our customers. So we do look at the independent reviews like your Gartners and your IDCs and so on, but we also push the vendors through the tests as well to make sure that they do what they say in the tin, and they may do more. A lot of the time they actually do more than that as well. And we would work with the vendors to help with their roadmaps as well. So you can see the vendor selection review, about 200 a year come into that. Vendor deep dive, about 80 per year come into that. And then a smaller number of that would be actually brought into our portfolio, and they would go through the integration tests for BT Global. So before I pass over to John, it's just one saying that I always like to bring up in a cybersecurity conversation is: if you're proactive, you focus on preparing. If you're reactive, you end up focusing on repairing. And we all know it's always better to be proactive and preparing. An example I would use there is take an office and say a fire in the office. We would have sprinklers, there would be alarms. People would know the procedure as they've done the fire drills and how to exit the building, and to know where your exits are quite important. It should be the same for a cybersecurity attack. Everyone is a target. Everyone will be targeted. Everyone most likely will be hit at some stage. So it's having a prepared plan for that is key in cybersecurity. So thank you for listening. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass on to my colleague, John Murray, who's going to dig into the DDoS security side of things.
Many thanks, Derek. As Derek mentioned at the start there, I'm going to zoom in on DDoS in particular. We could talk about an awful lot in terms of managed security, but it would take an awful long time. So we'll focus on DDoS. And in the following few slides, and as we work through, what I want to talk about is the sort of the who, the what, and what's happening, timelines, and then wrap up with a bit of how we protect against DDoS attacks towards the end. So in essence, DDoS, or distributed denial of service attacks, effectively starve out internet services to organizations. And in the next slide or two, I'll go over how that actually works technically. But in terms of DDoS protection, BT has evolved our managed security products, and DDoS in particular, through its Protect BT program. BT has over 70 years plus of experience in terms of securing its network and services, but in particular since the 2012 Olympics, there was a program called Citadel that further became Protect BT, that in essence enhanced or further developed the security in protecting BT's own network, the core network, and the services that the network delivered. And that includes now the content for BT TV, etc. So quite a valuable assets across the world in terms of keeping our customers connected and their service connected. As part of that Protect BT piece, what BT then did after 2012 is we realized, or what we've done is we've taken the ongoing program to protect BT, and we've managed, what we've done is we've released it as a product to a managed product to our customers, and in essence the ability to protect our customers' networks as well as our own core network. So we've done that, as Derek said, we've levered effectively our relationship with partners. The cyber assessment lab was key to that. Strategic security partners and threat intelligence we would talk about a little bit about later, and of course the expertise within BT in terms of protecting our own network. So moving on from that, DDoS forms a key part of it's one of the key building blocks in terms of what organizations should be using to protect and to protect themselves in the changing threat landscape. So moving on, if you can move on one, Derek. Sorry, thanks. So the most important thing in terms of threats and DDoS is to understand, well, who are the people out there who are the instigators in terms of, and in the case of DDoS in particular, some of the key instigators, the top two would be criminals and state-sponsored adversaries, so that would be our threat actors. So really in terms of what we're seeing today, as I mentioned, the top two are criminals and threat actors, but criminals in particular are very, very well organized. They effectively have set themselves up as businesses, and they have a very high level of innovation. They invest a lot in their business, and effectively extortion is their business. So they have a very targeted approach, and their objective effectively is to walk away with a payday. In the case of state and state-sponsored actors, as you can imagine, these are effectively the alphas in the threat world. They have high level of specialization, almost unlimited access to resources, and have significant capabilities, and would be the envy of all other threat actors in terms of delivering DDoS and other types of attack. Then you have hacktivists. These are people who are looking to get their message across. And I suppose a really good example of hacktivists recently, I don't know if many people have seen it, is Anonymous as a group have actually targeted the Russian government. And what they've done is they've released data. So they've managed to hack the Russian government networks, and they've released data. And one of those pieces of data in particular, a good example of it is data around the phone numbers of Russian government and military officials. And what's happened as a result of that could be network data or otherwise, but what has happened as a result of that data release is the Ukrainian citizen army and people who are who support Ukraine have actually been able to just literally ring those numbers continuously day and night, and in essence form their own human form of DDoS. In other words, they're calling those people all the time and making those numbers effectively unusable. So we also have hackers, and hackers are out there, and their objective really is just because it's in essence to prove themselves and to be able to vandalize sites using DDoS maybe as a deception or a way to vandalize sites or stop service, but it's a just because situation. Then finally, there is always the threat as well of employees or insiders within organizations where maybe they have a perceived wrong or otherwise they would have had access or have access to the organization's resources, and therefore have an insider capability to carry out an attack or to form an attack. So we move on one, Derek, please. Yeah, great. So in terms of, we've talked about the threat actors. So, what is a DDoS attack? Organizations, as Derek mentioned earlier, absolutely dependent now on internet for transactions, B2B, business to business, business to customer, and all engagement effectively. So in essence, a DDoS attack targets an organization on the internet and targets their network, their applications and their services. And how it does that is it effectively is a form of traffic that overwhelms servers, devices, and applications with requests that basically stop legitimate users interacting with an organization's digital services on the internet. Another form of DDoS or flavor of DDoS attacks. So there's regular DDoS attacks where maybe, you know, a threat actor is not looking for anything in particular, but in the main, the majority now, as I mentioned, with criminals, etc., are or DDoS, or what are called ransom DDoSs, where a threat actor wants to monetize the attack. And effectively what they'll do is they'll proceed an attack with a ransom note, whether it be on email or on social media or otherwise, demanding currency, most likely Bitcoin or something similar, demanding that they get paid to go away effectively and not carry out the DDoS attack. If the ransom demand isn't paid, and there is obviously the risk of the attack taking place, and we have seen that in cases about 2 or 3 weeks after an organization gets a ransom demand, they can get hit by an attack. Interestingly enough as well, the way the attacks are formed as well, they tend to happen out of business hours. A little bit of social engineering thrown in. It's a Friday afternoon at 5:30 or 7:30, or a Saturday morning early on, where it's more difficult for a business to react to the ongoing attack, and therefore puts the organization under much more pressure to go and pay out the ransom demand of the DDoS attacker. And those DDoS attacks can go on. We've seen those attacks, those ransom-based DDoS, go on in terms of intermittently on and off, maybe for a few months, where an organization may not have proper DDoS protection in place. So the DDoS threat actor will come and go as they wish in terms of taking out customer service. So in terms of the types of DDoS attack, DDoS effectively operates, as I mentioned, by, in essence, sending lots of traffic to a target organization's digital infrastructure or network on the internet, and in essence starves out things like bandwidth, etc. So the first type of DDoS attack is a volumetric attack, and that relies solely on a huge amount of traffic going to the target site and basically filling up the pipe, and therefore regular users cannot interact with the system. A state exhaustion type attack is where the threat actors can take attacks, and what they will look to do here is not necessarily just fill up the pipe, but they'll look to exhaust the equipment that connects to the organization's digital infrastructure to the internet, whether it be a firewall or a router. In essence, it doesn't have to fill up the pipe. It just the state exhaustion attack just has to exhaust the resource of the router or the firewall, putting it into a state, maybe a lockout state, where it can ship traffic, filling up memory, buffers, or port count. An application layer attack effectively is where it's targeted at layer 7, the application layer itself, looking for specific vulnerabilities or issues, and basically stopping an application on the internet, maybe a web service or something similar, from operating back to customers and users. So all in all, the impact of a DDoS attack can start off, you know, as a reduction in access or speed or response of an organizational services to it back to its customers. It normally then results in a complete outage for a duration of time. The complete outage could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour, it could be a number of days, and I'll talk to that later on as well, as we have some stats on that. It also could relate into other performance issues. The tools and technology to enable this are, you may have heard of it before, things like botnets, DDoS for hire, and code and toolkits. Very quickly, bots, and Derek talked about all the devices out in the web. There's thousands and millions, billions of devices getting added, obviously, to networks daily and weekly. So botnets are effectively where threat actors capture or take control of devices, and what they then do is group them together to form botnets. And then what they can do then is, on the second piece, they can hire out or use that botnet to generate a lot of traffic to throttle out the target location and create the DDoS attack. Or what they can do with more and more specialization nowadays, threat actors specialize in just providing those botnets as a DDoS for hire service. In some other cases, you can have a DIY type of approach where there's plenty of code and toolkits on the web today, along with YouTube videos where you can build your own DDoS attack. So it's a very low bar to entry, as we'll see. If we could go to the next slide, please, Derek. Thanks. So just a DDoS by the numbers, just a few numbers just for information here in terms of DDoS. So last year there was around 9.7 million DDoS attacks globally. It just gives you a sense of that. So that's 1 every 3 seconds, roughly speaking, if my maths is correct. In some cases, just as one example, the kind of damage they do monetarily to businesses, there was a US service provider that's estimated to have lost in terms of revenue and the extortion factor about $9 million based on one particular DDoS attack. So they can have very significant impact on companies. If you think about the number of transactions, whether it's a service you're providing, if it's voice over IP, or if it's a site where people are purchasing, where effectively the user just cannot interact, and therefore for every second money is lost by a business, or its ability to interact with its customers and businesses are completely stopped. So the final piece there is 0 to 6,500 euros. That's the cost. It literally is a very low barrier to entry, as I mentioned. It can cost as little as €0 in terms of the code and the toolkit, but if you want to set up a really, really big attack, it's around 6,500 euros. So the trend really, and we'll go into trends in a little bit more detail later, is we continue to see DDoS attacks increasing in size, and what we see is amplification attacks and botnets, overwhelming in-house resources where a customer or an organization doesn't have DDoS protection implemented as part of their security. So it's used as DDoS is quite often used as a diversionary tactic as well, as part of a multi-pronged attack. So maybe when a DDoS attack happens, it ties up the IT and the security team in terms of looking after the DDoS attack. And while they're distracted, some scanning, reconnaissance, maybe command and control or lateral movement can be taking place, maybe to enable a further attack or the injection of ransomware, or to take advantage of an exploit, many different things there. But DDoS is quite often used as a diversionary tactic in attacks. And as I mentioned there, there's an increasing trend as DDoS as a service, because the threat actors are getting more specialized, so they're cooperating an awful lot more. And what they're doing is the specialization means that they are selling elements of their expertise to each other. So they may not singly run a DDoS attack themselves, but they may sell it off to another threat actor. So Derek, we could go to the next slide.
No problem.
So in terms of, what are the things that have enabled DDoS? So in essence, what's enabled DDoS? We all know that over the last few years, there's been a significant improvement in access technology, higher bandwidth capability, from broadband to mobile, 4 and 5G. There's just a greater capacity now in terms of attack capacity, in terms of the network out there. The network has got an awful lot better. It's got an awful lot bigger in terms of capacity. And the target diameter, in other words, an organization is using the internet an awful lot more. Therefore, their diameter is an awful lot, their attack diameter is an awful lot wider. And therefore, there's a bigger target to attack for threat actors. Derek talked about it earlier, IoT and OT, but there's so many different innovations as we continue to move forward in terms of development. We could mention Moore's Law. We don't need to do that really in essence, but applications, software, cloud, IoT, everything is connected. And in many cases, out of the box, a lot of new software or cloud, or particularly IoT and OT, have very weak security. I think IoT and OT are mentionable there because in essence, a lot of IoT and OT is low cost and therefore has very poor capability beyond its initial use case, and therefore it's very difficult to implement security, and it can be very easy to capture as part of a botnet or to to pick up a vulnerability to be used in the DDoS attack. I mentioned earlier that the bar for entering the club, in the old days, that was you're wearing jeans and you're wearing runners, so you're not allowed in. But in this, the DDoS club, it's very, very cheap to enter the club. As I mentioned, it can cost anything from €0 to get in, and in essence, easily accessible tools, and DDoS for hire code and toolkits, very easy to set up an attack. In many cases, what we do see, some of the greater challenges is the lack of basic IT hygiene. Derek talked about it earlier as well, but more and more it is so difficult to keep for businesses and organizations to keep on top of patching and managing complex processes, etc. Where threat actors take advantage of vulnerabilities. And I think it's worth mentioning one vulnerability which is publicly out there at the moment is of note in this situation, where patching and all is particularly important, is the particular voice over IP system used by quite a number of customers around the world. Was used in the early part of March to set up fairly significant DOS attacks. And how that happened was, you could send a very simple message across the internet to that device, and what it would do is it would try and respond to that message, but it would try and respond with thousands and possibly millions of packets. But you could ask it to respond to another IP address, and therefore you could ask it to respond to a target or another organization's IP address, and therefore you could create a DDoS attack very easily with a vulnerability as opposed to a botnet. So that was a very interesting attack, and that's since been patched. But again, it shows the importance of cyber hygiene and the importance of patching. So not only would the target be affected by a DDoS attack, but the customer who had, or the client who had the system on site would actually experience throttling of their bandwidth as that system tried to send data out to the target system. So one of the other things we talked about, complexity of the state, it is getting hold of it. We talked about 2 million vacancies in security. There's still a significant skills shortage with real expertise in the area of security and cloud. And again, that plays back into all the different, more complicated environments. And then I suppose finally we saw during the pandemic, back to heterogeneous environments, etc. It's harder and harder now. The boundaries of networks and digital infrastructure have moved out so much. It has really blurred the perimeter, making it harder to secure and to gain visibility of the full estate. You move on, Derek. Thanks, Derek. So just a little pause as we progress. So in the context of DDoS, a little pop quiz here, maybe not quite the back for cereal box, but in essence, the number 10, we'll just pause for a minute, 20 seconds, and have a think about what the number 10 means in the world of DDoS.
Yeah, you can pop the answers into the chat, what you think, or send them on the back of a postcard to PO Box ABC123, if anyone remembers those days. Great.
Thanks, Derek. I'll dive in now. So in essence, 10, it's an interesting number, but it's actually, we talked about the cost of a DDoS attack. It's one of the most common. 10 is the cost, €10 to get a fairly significant DDoS attack. And interestingly enough, what's been found in the UK very recently is that children as young as 9 years of age, by the NC, the National Crime Agency in the United Kingdom, discovered that kids as young as 9 or 10 years of age have been able to launch DDoS attacks. And this has got the police involved, who have now set up a campaign of awareness in the schools. Obviously, it comes under the banner of cybercrime. So what the kids are doing in many cases, and BT saw this when it was involved, BT uses Protect BT in the EE network. And this is something that we saw also are experienced in the EE network, where kids online are attacking each other using small DDoS attacks or large DDoS attacks, and firing them off against maybe a competitor on Fortnite or Call of Duty or whatever the game might be, to take them offline and be top of their game, as it would be. So that's an interesting one in terms of, again, that's that low bar for entry, very easy to set up a DDoS attack. So getting into the actual trends in the recent past, in 2017, for example, starting there, major botnets were shut down by in the West by government agencies, and for a few months what we saw is a reduction in the amount of DDoS attacks, but very, very quickly that capability was replaced and even grew. And in terms of, at the time, from 2017 or beforehand, really it was financial and gaming sectors that were really prioritized by threat actors in terms of targets. Whereas now that has shifted somewhat. Again, it's all going back to the fact that threat actors really trying to monetize DDoS and or DDoS attacks. So they were really in the crosshairs, but now that has spread. Threat actors have moved out and diversified into other sectors and are looking to target other sectors which are quite lucrative. So in 2021, obviously we saw the pandemic, we saw the significant dependency as everybody went home in terms of VPNs and digital infrastructure. And in Ireland and Europe, what has been seen in terms of DDoS is that there was a significant increase in DDoS attacks. Again, the fact of monetization, where threat actors saw the opportunity when people were working at home, etc., to disrupt business, attack points at which, for example, businesses were very much 100% reliant on digital infrastructure for remote access, for interaction with their suppliers, supply chain, customers, etc. So, as we mentioned before, that increased trend of DDoS as a service and that specialization, they all go to make up the pieces in terms of what the trends, and a significant, continued right up to today, a continued increase in the size of DDoS attacks as well as the number of DDoS attacks. As we mentioned, 1 every 3 seconds in effectively 2021. So in May 2021, May and June, most interesting for Ireland, what we saw is threat actors zoomed in on Ireland, and what actually happened is there was regular DDoS attacks taking out organizations, but also DDoS, the ransom DDoS attacks as part of their campaign. The DDoS attacks were mainly used as a form of distraction, so malware could be inserted into organizations' networks, and the DDoS attacks, they actually made the state media here, where service providers, ISP and voice service providers in Ireland were actually targeted, and that hit the newspapers along with other significant cyber attacks that happened at the time, which we'll most likely all recall. So if we just move on one, Derek, please. So what's happening now? We talked about what's happening during the pandemic and beforehand. Right now, from 2021 onwards, attacks have got more complex. They become more multifaceted, and effectively ransomware gangs have moved on to use a form of triple extortion. So DDoS is a key part of that, along with data theft and file encryption. So that whole ransom piece there as well, in terms of and data exfiltration. So that triple extortion is a key trend. But also, unfortunately, with the conflict in Ukraine, where Russia invaded Ukraine, what we saw as well is DDoS attacks. Obviously, there was attacks against Ukraine prior to the invasion, and obviously they continue. And then there's DDoS attacks against Russia. Interesting enough, according to our partners and ourselves, there's a decrease in botnet activity. So those botnets that we would have seen coming out of Russia, there was definitely a decrease in them as the conflict escalated it. And in some cases also, the number of DDoS attacks coming out of there was impacted by the fact that one of the major ISPs actually discontinued services into Russia. So a major autonomous system on the internet effectively disappeared from the Russia and connecting to Russia to the internet. So what was very interesting as part of it, about a week and a half, 2 weeks in, the Ukrainian government, after their sites had been attacked prior and during the initial invasion, they moved their digital services onto AWS. And the whole objective around that was that they wanted to keep, obviously, their government services running so that their citizens could use their services, keep government going, keep things, keep the lights on, but also was to get an enhanced level of protection, or protection at scale. So someone like Amazon, like BT, etc., has protection at scale, has significant resources globally to protect that infrastructure. So the DDoS actors, really participating in this, obviously state, and obviously state proxies and APT groups. And also there's crowdsource attacks. So many hacktivists, again, we mentioned Anonymous being one of those, but lots more other hacktivists getting involved and attacking both of those countries' infrastructure. I think outside of the Ukraine as well, there was a significant attack on Israel, such that it was an attack on a DDoS attack, or a group of DDoS attack on the Israeli government sites, and that actually sparked a state of emergency in Israel, which was very interesting. Again, allegedly, and I have to say allegedly, the threat actor in that case was actually a state-based actor. We won't mention names, but that's fairly easily found on trusted sites on the internet. So I think, what's the story, or what's the trend all around this? We mentioned that triple extortion, but with the conflict in Ukraine, with all the really an uptake in state-based and hacktivism, APT groups, etc., there is potential in other scenarios where threat actors can take advantage of this fog of war, all this the cyber warfare, and possibly cyber crossfire for other campaigns. So the chances of some of these attacks going to the wrong IP addresses and hitting other organizations is high. And also the ability for threat actors to hide amongst all this noise along with that. And the other thing I meant to mention as well is, obviously, European governments, as we moved into the conflict in Ukraine, European governments and businesses, as a result of the sanctions and the continued sanctions being implemented against Russia, are on heightened alert, because there is an expectation and some experience that of reconnaissance and also of some attacks as those sanctions take hold. You could move on a bit, Derek.
Yeah. Just to give you a 2-minute warning,
yeah.
John.
Yeah, thank you very much. I always need one of those. So just very quickly, we mentioned just in terms of the trends in Ireland, one of the more interesting trends in Ireland was, as we mentioned, the attacks in May of last year, and they were combined DDoS and DDoS attacks. DDoS attacks for ransomware, and DDoS to exploit Bitcoin off, in particular, service providers. And I mentioned they made a media, but interesting to see some of the biggest attacks there, 178 gigabits, and peak duration. So some of the DDoS attacks are very short, but some have a duration of up to 7 days. So if you can imagine being off the air for 7 days, is quite an impact to an organization in terms of interacting with its services, customers, etc. If we move on to the next one, Derek, as I try to get inside my 2 minutes. So in terms of what we continue to see, so again, I think I've repeated it a few times, but we continue to see DDoS attacks rising, and it'd be interesting to see as well with the, as I mentioned, the threat, or that heightened state of alert with the sanctions on Russia, etc. Both hackers, maybe government agencies, etc., maybe attacking the West. What we'll see this trend, but this trend, again, just to reiterate, is just for Ireland, and it's the number of DDoS attacks to date since January, and we can see it continues to grow. Interesting enough, I forgot to mention the last slide as well. It seems, you may have noticed it, that during the summer period, it seems like threat actors seem to take summer holidays as well, because the DDoS attacks increase from January through to May, and then they increase back in November around the Cyber Week, Cyber Monday, and Black Friday. So quickly go down to the next one there, Derek. Next one again. So in terms of what we offer, BT offers a managed DDoS service, and to protect our customers. And effectively, that service is fully integrated into our network, and it's enhanced by threat intelligence from both BT's global network and from our partners. And in essence, our objective there is to mitigate DDoS attacks in the internet as far upstream as possible, to protect organizations and our customers. That's particularly for organizations on the BT network, but we can also offer protection for organizations that are not on the BT network as well. All of this provides automated DDoS protection to save time for IT and security teams in businesses and to maintain their uptime and their business continuity. And as I said, mitigate attacks upstream. And finally, the last slide, just outside my 2 minutes. So again, just to reiterate, we see further. So as Derek mentioned earlier on, security is very much integrated and built into our network. We take the experience from BT, our level of expertise, we road test with our partners and vendors. We have a long and rich history of innovation in both Martlesham and in our in the CAL, as Derek mentioned. Our experience of scale, our networks are, the large global carrier networks. We have that depth of experience and we understand the threat environments, and we lead on intelligence. So we've accessed not only from partners, but also from the likes of Interpol, NCS, the National Cyber Centre in the UK, and global intelligence from vendors and other sources. And in essence, as we mentioned, we are state protectors. So we have that level of expertise right up the state level to protect states, public service, etc., which helps us overall protect our customers.
Yeah, brilliant.
So I think that's it. And I think,
yeah, I suppose thanks very much for having us on, and special thanks to Seamus Downing. I see him there. My ex, I won't say old lecturer Seamus, but my ex-lecturer back in the day, and to Joe and all the team at iTag. Thanks very much for having us on. But feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn and so on. Sorry, was there a question there?
No.
No, I don't think so. There.
Yeah, I'm conscious we've run out of time, but did anybody have any questions along the way? I know